Good morning. The Lord is King. Who then shall dare resist his will, distrust his care, or murmur at his wise decrees, or doubt his royal promises? What a beautiful verse that was that we sang together. You can turn in your Bibles to Hebrews chapter 12. Hebrews chapter 12. You will remember that this follows chapter 11, and chapter 11 is full of what people call the Hall of Faith. It's a display, a gallery, if you will, of people who were faithful in the past. And chapter 12 begins this way. Therefore we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him who endured such hostility from sinners against himself, lest you become weary and discouraged in your souls. You have not yet resisted to bloodshed, striving against sin, and you have forgotten the exhortation which speaks to you as to sons. My son, do not despise the chastening of the Lord, nor be discouraged when you are rebuked by him. For whom the Lord loves, he chastens, and scourges every son whom he receives. If you endure chastening, God deals with you as with sons. For what son is there whom a father does not chasten? But if you're without chastening, of which all have become partakers, then you're illegitimate and not sons. And I believe I'll just stop right there. Now, I don't know if the writer of Hebrews was thinking about this passage or not from the book of Numbers, but there's a story in the book of Numbers I would like to take the time to read. This is the book of Numbers, chapter 21. And I suspect that, I think it's plausible, or possible anyway, that the Hebrew writer actually was alluding to this account. Book of Numbers, chapter 21, and this is an interesting story that may be memorable for all of us, but for the children might enjoy thinking about the details of the story and picturing it in your mind about how this was going. And the place where this story happens is in the wilderness. The children of Israel have been journeying for quite some time already, and now they need to take a detour. They're going around one particular land, and it's taking them out of the way. It's taking them extra time. So Numbers chapter 21, and let's just start in verse 4. Then they departed from Mount Hor by the way of the Red Sea, and they went around the land of Edom, and the people became discouraged on the way. So the people spoke against God and against Moses. Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to kill us in the desert? For there's no bread nor water, and our soul is weary of this worthless bread. So the Lord sent venomous serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and many of the children of Israel died. Then the people came to Moses and were saying, we sinned, for we spoke against the Lord and against you. Therefore pray to the Lord and let him take away the serpent from us. So Moses prayed for the people. Then the Lord said to Moses, make a serpent for yourself and put it on a signal pole. And it shall be, if a serpent shall bite someone, when the one bitten looks at it, he shall live. So Moses made a copper serpent and put it on a signal pole. And it happened when a serpent bit anyone, and he looked at the copper serpent, he lived. Wow, what an amazing little story. Copper serpent on a pole to heal the people who were bitten by the serpents. Well, what the people in the book of Numbers needed, and what the people of Hebrews needed, and what we need is endurance. Let us lay aside every weight and the sin which clings so closely. So in this detour that Israel was taking around the land of Edom, they realized that it's taking a lot extra time. It's taking more resources. Why can't we just get to where we're going? Why is this thing dragging out so long? We've been already in the wilderness how many years? And they became unbelieving. I believe that their sin was unbelief. Throwing up their hands in despair, saying, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this. What are we doing out here? Why are you bringing us out here to die in the wilderness? And along with unbelief comes many subsequent sins, things that just follow. The weariness, the exhaustion. We know how these things feel, the frustration, the exasperation. And the writer of Hebrews in our theme text says that we are to run with endurance. And I know that there's, I believe that there's some, maybe a metaphor here of running a race. And I'm not picking up on that metaphor this morning. I believe it does exist. I think that's legitimate. But with reference to the wilderness wanderings, there was also a running that was to be done. It was a persevering. It was like running with patience. It was like not wearing out, not just giving up. But notice what the Hebrew writer says that we're to look to. If we are to run with endurance, we need somebody to look to who has also gone with endurance. Some example, some model to look at. And he says the example that we are to look at is Jesus. Looking unto Jesus. How did he run with endurance? It says here, remarkably, it says that he endured the cross. Actually, that wasn't the part I was looking for. Who for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. I just don't find the cross joyful. And I think about that question, like, how is it that Jesus, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross? And I believe that what happened there in the example of Jesus is this. He had the prize set before him. There was something he was striving for, and there was a cost that it required. The cross, made visible the cost of the prize. And he was joyful, looking forward to the prize. And because he had that fixed in his vision, he pressed toward that, and he just endured the cross. Right? The cross was temporary. The cross was something, was something that was going to come and go, and he was looking for the prize. And this is exactly how it should have been for the people in the book of Numbers too, the children of Israel. There was a prize that they were striving for, and they should have kept that in their minds as they were tempted to murmur and tempted to give up and throw up their hands in despair. They should have kept that prize in their mind so that they could have endured, so that they would see that, yes, this is hard. Yes, we're wondering where we're gonna, how we're gonna survive this. Yes, we're tired of this, but there's a prize and it's worth it, and we're gonna press forward for that. And in thinking about this, I probably shared this before, but I'll just repeat myself, that I love this one parable that Jesus gave, and that is about the treasure that's hidden in the field. And when there's a man who found a treasure hidden in a field, and he saw the value of that treasure. It was a prize to him. It was something worth like pursuing. And he went back home and he sold everything he had, just like liquidated everything he had. And he went and he bought that field that contained the treasure so that he would have the treasure. He was willing to like sell everything he had. Why do we not, like what's starkly missing in that parable is any kind of murmuring, any kind of complaining and saying, look what a terrible deal I have. Like, I just got done sacrificing everything in my life. I sold everything out. Think about what a terrible high cost I paid. Think about the cross that I suffered. Think about all that. No, there's like zero, none of that. Guess what he was doing? He was rejoicing. I got the treasure. Like he was willing to like sell everything and be, just be charmed by the prize. I think that's what it was for Jesus. When he endured, there was the prize. It was worth selling everything for it. And he didn't lose heart because of it. That is our example, looking unto Jesus. He is our example for endurance, and endurance with joy. Well, there's another thing that I would like to look at from this passage in Numbers, and that is that the venomous snakes, I believe the venomous snakes were sent as a chastening for sin. This, I believe, is explicitly mentioned, but it was also received that way. The children of Israel understood it to be that way. Sin brings death, and just like the biting serpents bring people to death, sin also brings people to death. And chastening does that. Chastening reminds us of the effects that our actions have upon us. And if they had not had that chastening, if they had not had the serpents to remind them of that, they may have thought it's okay to just go on in life and complain and murmur. But no, they had to realize and be brought to come to grips with the fact that if we murmur and if we're complaining and if we're despairing and if we're in unbelief, we're dying. And that's what the venomous snakes brought to their minds. And they said, verse 7, the people came to Moses and were saying, we sinned, for we spoke against the Lord and against you. Therefore, pray to the Lord and let him take away the sin. Were you following along? They didn't say that. They didn't ask to have the sin taken away. They said, take away the serpent, stop the chastening. Right? Like that's how we react. Right? We have chastening and we like say, leave off, stop the chastening. Just so interesting that, what about the sin? What about the murmuring? Well, they did confess it, and that was good. But it seems like, they like we tend to just look at the immediate hardship and try to find relief from that. And in fact, to this point, I believe, is why Jesus prayed what he did, part of what he did, in John chapter 17, where he says, I do not pray that they would be taken out of this world, right? Like, get me out of here. Why do I need to suffer in this world? I don't pray that you'd take them out of this world. I pray that you would keep them from, guess what? The sin. Keep them from the evil of this world. But just like the sin, or just like the sin was infecting them and killing them spiritually, so the snakes were killing them physically, and that venom would, go through their body and probably shut them down in fairly short order. What were they to do about it? Well, Moses prayed to the Lord, and the Lord said, Make a serpent for yourself. Put it on a signal pole, and so that's what he did. He made a copper, I believe it was, a copper serpent, and he put it up on a pole. And the instruction was this: if anybody gets bitten by a snake, they can look at that serpent and they will be healed. They can live. Look at the serpent and you will live. You know, unbelief brought them to this place of despair. Unbelief brought them to this place of murmuring. What does it take? What is the antidote for unbelief? Faith. And the very thing that they needed, they now had an outlet for. What they need to do is go look at this serpent on a pole. Now, if you're out in the wilderness somewhere, maybe you're outside of the camp, or you're like even a little distant from this, wherever the central place was, perhaps. I don't know if it was central, but wherever this copper serpent was erected, if you're just a little distance from there and you receive a snake bite, or somebody near to you receives a snake bite, what's your instinctive action going to be? Well, I think you're going to want to quick treat this. Time is of the essence. Let's take care of this person. Let's bring him to the doctor. Let's get some kind of medicine for him. And it's a hurry. We gotta do this fast. It required faith for them to instead bring that person somewhere within proximity of the pole, so that they could look on this serpent that Moses put there, this provision for life, and believe that they could believe that this is my life, this is healing here, to come and behold the serpent. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 1, he says, the word of the cross is folly to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. Isn't it folly to forgo the doctor and forgo the first aid? Isn't it folly to leave that aside and instead go to the cross? Yes, it might have been for all who are unbelieving. But what was being encouraged is have faith. Have faith, God is with you. God will heal you. This is the prescription. This is what it takes to find that healing. And for those who are being saved, imagine the people who are making their way to that cross, making their way to that pole with the serpent. And they're putting all their life and energy and effort into getting there, and so that the patient, the victim, can see the serpent on a pole. Those people were the ones being healed. For us who are being saved, it is the power of God. The symbol of death has become a symbol of life. In Hebrews, the Hebrew writer says that Jesus endured the cross, despising the shame. What shame? The shame of the cross. It's a shame to die a criminal's death. And even as I was putting these thoughts together, I was hesitant to say, really, is Jesus the snake on the pole? That sounds terrible. I hate snakes. I hope you're with me. They're horrible, right? But Jesus became despicable. Jesus was despised. He was esteemed. He was esteemed as one who was. Word slips my mind. A criminal. Yeah, he was esteemed as a criminal. Died that way. People were mocking him. Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. Yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace, and with his wounds we are healed. John chapter 12. This is just prior to the, or maybe it was part of the Olivet Discourse, in fact. I'm not quite sure where that starts, but some of the final words there with Jesus to the disciples before Jesus went to the cross. He says, "Now is the judgment of this world. Now will the ruler of this world be cast out. And I, if I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all people to myself." He said this, John says, he said this to show by what kind of death he was going to die. Now let me ask you, what is the golden text of the Bible? Somebody answer that? Somebody know what is the golden text of the Bible? John 3:16 is often referred to as the golden text of the Bible. And it says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life." Now, it's interesting that people call it the golden text of the Bible. I think it should maybe be called the copper text of the Bible, because the context of this is this. Let me read it. John 3:14. But the greater context is that Jesus is talking with Nicodemus and telling him that he needs to be born again and so on. But in verse 14, it says this: "As Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up." Did you get that? As Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. So again, this serpent in the wilderness was one that called for faith, called for all those who would believe in this, believe in the serpent, that there is healing there. And likewise, Jesus is saying that that's how the Son of Man, that's how Jesus would need to be lifted up, so that whoever believes on him, whoever looks to Jesus, looks to how Jesus endured the cross, would be able to have eternal life. There is one final lesson that I think we should consider about this story, and that is from 2 Kings chapter 18. Hezekiah was a king of Judah, and I want to just see if I can find it here in the Septuagint. Hezekiah was the king of Judah, and he was a good king. The scripture says here in 2 Kings chapter 18, verse 3, it says, "He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, according to everything his father did. He removed the high places and broke into pieces the sacred pillars." It's all good, right? But listen to this. "He cut down the sacred wood images and broke in pieces the bronze serpent Moses had made, because up to those days the sons of Israel had burned incense to it." What? This bronze serpent that Moses had put up years before had now become an idol. It now had become something that people were offering incense to. And Hezekiah, the man of God, saw that idolatry, and he broke that apart. So I think that maybe one, somewhat of a side issue here, but one thing that we can learn from this book of Numbers is that the cross is not to become an idol. The cross is not to become an idol. In looking at the cross, we are looking to Jesus, who is now, like the Hebrew writer says, seated at the right hand of the throne of God. We are looking to Jesus. We're seeing how he endured the cross. We're taking encouragement from that. We're finding courage in that. But we're looking to Jesus who is alive, who is reigning now. And I believe it's a dire mistake to make the cross an object of worship. And I hope that's not confusing to you. I think that you'll understand the difference between looking to the cross, finding freedom, finding courage there, compared to like making that an emblem, making that an object of worship. We are to worship the living Savior. He is the one who endured the cross, despising the shame, and is now seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Amen.